extraordinary. I don't understand. I think the social distancing rules are very important and people should follow them. Mr. Speaker, these words were from the now former Health Secretary last year, when a scientist admitted to meeting his girlfriend indoors, breaking COVID rules, and now we know he broke the same rules. He also flouted rules on procurement, handing out contracts to dodgy mates. He let down staff and residents of care homes with his not really a ring of protection around them, and much more. For instance, what sort of Health Secretary hands out contracts for PPE to his pub landlord, a pub called, and I'm not making this up, the Cock Inn? A few weeks ago in Business Question, the Leader of the House referred to the former Health Secretary as, and I quote, a successful genius. Does the Leader wish to amend this judgment? This May, the rules were there should be no indoor social gathering of 2 or more people from different households, and we've all seen the CCTV footage of the former Health Secretary and the former non-executive director of his then department. That's not a work meeting. But, Mr. Speaker, does the Leader know where government cameras are in government departments? Is there a list? If it wasn't the government, who put them there and how? In the Moggcast this week, the Leader said, if a man were to appoint his wife to be a non-executive director, you would hope that the Cabinet Office knew that the lady was married to the man. And he clearly agrees that it matters who a Secretary of State appoints to check his or her work. So will there be a review of the appointment process? And will government publish details of the appointment of this specific former non-executive director? Mr. Speaker, this week the British people have felt the joy of football victory, and keen followers of Business Question know that football is not my sport. But even I witnessed both the goals and the joy, and I am a great fan of joy. May there be more joy on Saturday. But with concerns about COVID outbreaks associated with Euro matches, can I ask what reassurance the government will give about protection for the remaining matches? And does the Leader understand the bemusement of amateur choirs still not allowed to sing indoors, seeing football fans cheering indoors? Can he explain why VIPs and business execs are exempt from travel restrictions when others, very ill, can't even get a response to an application to isolate at home instead of in a hotel on medical grounds? It's rules for all of us and no rules for government and their mates. No rules for them. Mr. Speaker, a year ago, the DWP Minister said the review on the 6-month rule for terminally ill people would be published shortly. Last week, the Leader said it would be soon. And on Monday, the Minister said it was very soon, and then said the same about the disability strategy promised 2 years ago. And yesterday, the Prime Minister gave a soon about the online safety bill. Can the Leader of the House tell us how long soon is? Thanks to months of campaigning by steelworkers, their trade unions and MPs, the government yesterday finally acted to protect steel jobs. But just saying soon doesn't help people who are worried about their jobs and their livelihoods. Will the government learn that? Mr. Speaker, when ministers break rules, the Prime Minister rewards them instead of sacking them. When the Secretary of State for Communities and Local Government helped out a Tory donor mate, he didn't sack him. When the Home Secretary was found to have bullied her own staff, he didn't sack her. When the Education Secretary messed up, well, pretty much everything, the Prime Minister didn't sack him, and that saga continues with children missing months of school in a catch-up plan that doesn't catch them up. And no, this is not just Westminster bubble stuff. As the Leader of the Opposition said yesterday, this hurts people. They feel betrayed. People who dutifully watch Number 10 press conferences to check rules. And in following rules, people struggled. Some lost jobs. Some couldn't hold the hand of a parent at the end of life or be at their funeral. But they stuck to the rules, even when it really hurt. And meanwhile, the Prime Minister can't get his ministers to stick to any rules. So what consequences for ministers breaking rules does the Leader think there should be? People hate hypocrisy, Mr. Speaker. They know it when they see it, and they've seen it again this week. The man who set the COVID rules, breaking the COVID rules, and a Prime Minister just waving his hands in the air. The Leader will say, well, there's a new Health Secretary and the vaccine rollout is great. And yes, we are eternally grateful to the scientists and the NHS for the vaccine. We are all queuing up. But this doesn't change government rule breaking and why this matters. So I ask the Leader of the House, when will the government stop breaking their own rules? Because it really is one set of rules for the people, and for the government and their mates, no rules for them. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I think the Honourable Lady's fox was shot some time ago, because my right honourable friend is the former Health Secretary. And the word former is quite an important one. He has been replaced, as we've had references to association football, by the supersub, the Jack Grealish of politics, in the form of my right honourable friend, the new Secretary of State, who has come on with great effect and great panache already. And the honourable lady challenges me on what I said about the great genius of the former Secretary of State. And I do stick by that, because he worked incredibly hard for 15 months. But if I may resort to Dryden once again, the honourable lady will know that great wits are short of madness ne'er allied, and thin partitions do their bounds divide. And unfortunately, he made a grave mistake, for which, because the rules are enforced fairly, he resigned, and he resigned the day after the story was printed in the newspapers. And here we get the splitting of hairs between the resignation and the sacking. The man has gone. He has lost his job, as has the non-executive director in the Department of Health, with whom he seemed to be closely associated. And that is quite the right way for it to have happened. The right honourable gentleman, my right honourable friend, is no longer in office. And then the honourable lady complains about procurement. Well, this is not what the opposition was saying a year ago, when it was said the government specifically was asked if it would now commit to provide local public health services and Public Health England with whatever it needs to build up the test, trace and isolate regime so obviously needed. A strong demand from the opposition that should take place very quickly. And of course it was done quickly. What did the opposition do? It set out 10 proposals for the government. Very helpful. In number 3 was test, test, test. For testing to be effective, government should provide capacity for widespread regular community testing. Everyone showing symptoms should be able to access a test within 24 hours. On and on it goes, asking the government to do what exactly the government was doing. And now, a year later, they complain that we did it quickly. What did they want? They wanted us to do it with torpor, with inactivity, with idleness, where we wouldn't have got very far with it if we had. So last year we should do whatever it takes, and this year doing whatever it takes was wrong. And Mr. Speaker, there is a word for that, but it's not parliamentary, so I won't use it. It was quite right of the opposition to ask for what it did a year ago. It was right for the government to do it, and it had to be done at speed. Now, I'm delighted that the honourable lady wants to spread joy. As we all know, joy cometh in the morning, and this morning is a morning of joy for us all. And she asks about remaining matches. Now, I don't know the specific plans for football, but I can inform the House about the plans for anyone intending to go to the match between England and Pakistan at Lord's, a one-day match on the 10th of July, which I will be going to. And I got the circular from the MCC yesterday that you will be required either to show that you have been double vaccinated within a fortnight or that you have had a recent test. So there are procedures in place, and this is one of the test events. It's actually a one-day match, not a test, but Mr. Speaker, you get the point. It is a test event where things will be carefully kept in order to ensure the safety of people going there. The honourable lady thanks the government for bringing forward the duties for the steel workers, and I'm grateful for her thanks and for her support for the robust action that the government has taken and is being done quite properly in the right way to ensure that the steel industry is protected where it needs to be. And then we get into an obscure argument about the Westminster bubble. It is unquestionably true that there are some issues which this House is beset by, and I think deciding how many angels dance on the pinhead of a resignation or a sacking is one of those, and my right friend the Prime Minister was right to say so yesterday.